And doing our very best to make mornings great again here in the Treasure Valley and across the nation via the KIDO Talk Radio app. It is Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. Big week in the Treasure Valley. You've got the NCAA men's basketball tournament coming to town. You've got some powerhouse programs, of course, Gonzaga. You've got Ohio State, Kentucky. What is it, Arizona? Is that right? I guess it's Arizona. Well, if not, it's before 8 a.m., so everything is on the table. Theater of the mind before 8 a.m. And people will be talking about that and discussing that and going, oh, isn't this great? Isn't this exciting? And yeah, it is. It's always cool when the Treasure Valley gets a chance to shine. Of course, when we do that, then all of a sudden everybody wants to move here. And you look at the cover of the paper today, explosive growth continues to tax West Ada schools. These taxes would help pay for it. Well, isn't that nice that you have the paper or the digital paper, whatever you want to call it these days, carrying the water to raise taxes. In fact, if you lived in the West Ada School District, you got the little mailer by the Friends for Higher Education or what have you, advocating for another tax increase. Now, to me, this is a call out to all those fiscal conservatives that are going to say, when is enough enough? You might have caught our conversation with the state school superintendent on Thursday, and, she's talking about the money continuing to flow in. But really, when you see the explosive growth, it's not keeping up. And that will be an issue that really resonates for most of us as opposed to the shenanigans of what's going on in Washington, D.C., so we've got so many things to talk about. Now, we were going to have Casey Smedley on from the RNC, but apparently, as Ray Amaya adroitly stated, the time change didn't happen for them, I suppose. And really, this is a great time. As Ray and I were talking off the air, Ray loves this time of year because, why? Because the days get longer. You can go hiking. You can enjoy the time. For me, a guy that, lives the life of a hermit. I like to go to bed about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. It's tough. It's tough for all of us that wake up so early, because you have these long days. I mean, how many times have they said, put tinfoil over the windows? That'll help. Yeah, that's very appealing for the neighbors as well as yourself. What are you doing? I'm going out to get some Reynolds wrap to make sure that I can sleep at night. So we've got the wonderful time change. And no, it's not 5 a.m., it is 6 a.m., so we have that. Where should we start? Well, big news on the Big Fox last night, the O.J. Simpson special. Did you get a chance to catch that? And when O.J. Simpson was going on, that was when I was transitioning out of the lucrative career of being an educator, the lucrative career of working as a maintenance man in the mall. Now, a lot of people said it was housekeeping. I don't know. I really never really appreciated being called a housekeeper. But regardless of that, it was, my first or second year in talk radio as a host, not as a producer, but as a host, the O.J. Simpson verdict came down. And I can remember in Nashua, New Hampshire, on a now defunct radio station, WMVU, urging people that justice would be done, that prosecutors Marsha Clark and Christopher Darden would succeed because, well, they're good. And then the O.J. verdict came in. We had the racial divide that apparently always existed in America but was unknown to the white people, that O.J. had beaten the system, and you had different reactions where you had the black community in some parts of the country celebrating while the white community was shocked by it. And again, you take a look at our racial history in America, you take a look at the courts in the segregated South, and it wasn't kind to people after Reconstruction. It wasn't kind to people of color. And there you have it. We paid for the sins of the racist past, if you will. Now, O.J. Simpson is out of jail, and Fox TV, I think they're a little sore because American Idol is back. And really, does Ryan Seacrest look the same? Probably not with all those allegations. But anyway, and Katy Perry, and, I feel bad for poor Lionel Richie. You remember Lionel Richie, the guy in the 80s? I don't know if his daughter Nicole or anybody else has forced him to do this, but Lionel Richie's got to be, in his mid-60s? An icon of the 80s all night long? Well, apparently all night long didn't go all night for poor old Lionel because he's got the hair dye and dressing 30, 40 years his junior to try and be relevant on American Idol. So after, what was it, a year or two, American Idol's going away, Bon Voyage, it's back. I know what you're saying, Kevin. What about guns in school? We're going to get to that. We're going to get to arming teachers. But last night was so riveting when you're talking about O.J. Simpson. Last night when O.J. Simpson, quote, the lost confession. And really the reason why Fox TV put this on was, I think, to stick it to ABC and American Idol. But here you have O.J. Simpson, which this interview happened, 10 years ago? 2006, actually, 12 years ago? Now, this interviewed, and he's talking about the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson, her associate, Ronald Goldman. By the way, you ever want to do something that you don't ever want to do, interview a victim of crime. I can remember speaking with Fred Goldman about his son, Ron, and how devastated he was. And this was, 5 or 10 years after the murders. Now, remember, O.J. Simpson was acquitted of the murders in 1995. How many of you true believers remember that? How many of you true believers were around in 1995? Remember Judge Ito? Anyway, he's talking about this. This was to promote his book, quote, If I Did It, a tell-all describing what Simpson would have done had he committed the murders. Simpson says that to many, he's seen as an abusive person. Really? The 911 tapes, the photos?
She got physical with me, and obviously I'm bigger. I got more physical with her, which I shouldn't have done. Historically, I just leave, and I didn't just leave. And a little later, my housekeeper came and told me that the cops were outside. And the one thing that hurts me as much as anything in this, besides being considered by some a murderer, is this being a batterer.
Is there anyone listening? Is there anyone in America at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, that doesn't believe that O.J. Simpson did it? That O.J. Simpson is a narcissist, that O.J. Simpson still can't figure out that O.J. Simpson, like a lot of people these days, is the perennial victim in this case because he's seen as a quote-unquote batterer. Well, juice, if the shoe fits, wear it. And remember, this was a guy who didn't really do much for the African American community. Still didn't. People criticized him for being, quote-unquote, too white. And then all of a sudden you have this, where he gets judged by a jury of not of his peers. And we see the beginning of the unveiling of the great racial divide that continues to permeate in America today. But, I mean, when you hear this guy, your reaction?
I don't think any two people could be murdered the way they were without everybody being covered in blood. And of course, I think we've all seen the grisly pictures after. So, yeah, I think everything would have been covered in blood.
Sure. But OJ, but Juice. What about the laundry? What about the washer and dryer at your place? What about the bloody glove? Think about that at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Think about that for a moment, right? Here we have one of the foremost cases of murder in American history. And a lot has gone on since 1995. A lot has gone on since 2006, when this video was taped. And by the way, he was talking to one of the most prolific publishers, Judith Regan, for HarperCollins. The feedback at the time received such negativity that Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, pulled it. But here we have a guy that got away with it, describing himself as a victim.
Do you believe in heaven and hell?
Yes.
Do you believe that you're going to see Nicole someday?
Yes, I do.
You do?
And my mother, my dad, I surely do.
And what will you say to her?
Hey, I haven't thought of that. I would hug her.
I'll give her a hug. Wow. I'm sure she'll be down with that. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And really, you go down to it. Here you have a man who got away with murder, living in Las Vegas now. Apparently, eventually will move to Florida, but In my opinion, he shouldn't be out. They had to get him on a technicality where he was robbing people, where he was getting physical. Is there no doubt that O.J. Simpson did this? It is crazy, the world we live in. Our time is 6:16. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. By the way, I do want to remind you, we are starting our, I don't know how many seasons we've done this. What is it, our 8th year, I believe, of Promote Our Schools, Secure Our Future. We would love to profile one of your schools, a high school, middle school. If you would like us to be a part of that, that's brought to you by CapEd Credit Union. You can give us a call, or actually you can send me an email, and I'll pass it along to Ray. That is Kevin at KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin at KIDO Talk Radio. We would love to come to your school. The only program in the country, talk radio, commercial radio, music radio, that profiles schools, 20 visits a year. Why not take a look at your school? And really, last week at Columbia High School, it was so eye-opening because you hear so much, and everybody's talking about, oh, the student protest. Oh, this is going on. Schools are for learning, not protesting. When have we abdicated the realm of authority? Now, I wrote about that at KIDOTalkRadio.com. You can check that out as well. I think I'm going to do a follow-up piece before the Wednesday walkouts. So the president has come up with a plan to take a look at school safety. Betsy DeVos, the education secretary, was on 60 Minutes last night. We'll get your response to that. But back to O.J. Simpson. He did it, didn't he? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning here, going over the O.J. Simpson television show from last night.
As things got heated, I just remember Nicole fell and hurt herself. And this guy kind of got into a karate thing. And I said, well, you think you can kick my ass? And I remember I grabbed a knife. I do remember that portion, taking a knife from Charlie. And to be honest, after that, I don't remember. Except I'm standing there and there's all kind of stuff around. And,
So hypothetically, Judith Regan gets this guy to talk, O.J. Simpson. And so apparently in the scene last night, O.J.'s talking about his made-up friend, Charlie. Now, I can remember being a little kid, I would have made-up friends. Well, apparently O.J. had a made-up friend named Charlie. And how O.J. Simpson hypothetically sees this going down is that he and Charlie were there. Charlie gives him a knife. Nicole Simpson fell. Now, it was known that O.J. Simpson was a batterer, an abuser, a wife beater, right? Just not a good guy. So, let's face it, Nicole Brown Simpson did not fall. And Ronald Goldman comes there and does his very best to be the Good Samaritan. Sometimes, more often than not, it doesn't pay to be the Good Samaritan. He gets in a karate stance, O.J. grabs a knife, and never go to a knife fight with the karate. Doesn't seem to work. I mean, O.J.'s a big guy, right? Ronald Goldman was in shape, but even O.J., in his 40s or 50s, still with a knife, did that damage. It's a shame, a stain on American history that O.J. Simpson got away with it. But when you go down to, again, what happened in the past, it still doesn't make it right. You go down to the evil brilliance of Johnny Cochran. Amazing. Amazing that the race card could allow you to get away with murder, right? When people always talk about the race card and how bad America is, what about the other side? Of course, we don't want to hear that. All right, 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
I was very glad to see what the president had done. Look, I have been a critic for a long time about U.S. trade policy. My view is that we have negotiated one deal after another that has been great for big multinational corporations and been lousy for American workers, lousy for American small businesses, often not even good for American consumers.
The United States has some of the lowest tariff barriers in the world. And, we want our exports to have access to foreign markets, just as foreign products have access to the United States. And on the issue of steel and aluminum, those specific industries are critical to U.S. national security.
We have these large trade deficits simply because we're an open market. All we're looking for is fair and reciprocal trade. And I think our allies at the end of the day will understand that all we're doing here is defending two key industries so that we can come and help with their defense when they need us.
And there we have it, the big tariff issue yesterday. on many of the Sunday shows. We'll talk more about that at length. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, going to what Betsy DeVos said last night. If you missed it on 60 Minutes, and she was just on the Today Show, we'll do our very best to get that audio as well. But saying that the teachers should be armed, that they will look at hardening schools. They will look at what Sean Hannity has talked about for quite some time, and the president at quite some time, recruiting former military folks to keep schools safe. Coming up next, the president in one of our old stomping grounds, Moon Township, Pennsylvania. No, I'm not making that up. That's actually the township, kind of like such and such county. They have townships there in Pennsylvania. But first, it is time to get you to work safely and on time. All right, so the president in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, a place that I have gone to many times in my forays east of the Great River, had this to say. Now, let's apologize in advance for the president's take on Chuck Todd of NBC News.
You ever see the story where it's 1999, I'm on Meet the Press, a show now headed by Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd. He's a sleeping son of a bitch, I'll tell you. And they showed it this morning, 1999, and I'm talking about North Korea. You got to take them out now. And then they have...
There we have it, the president from his campaign swing, laying it like it is. By the way, let's hear Betsy DeVos, and then we'll get your calls concerning the president. Now, it's interesting that the president and the administration, at one hand, are saying, look, it's time to arm teachers, and yet you have many people here in the Treasure Valley and across the country going, oh, no, we don't want to do that.
Assault-style weapons from 18 to 21. He said it repeatedly. I'll play you some of it.
We're going to work on getting the age up to 21 instead of 18. It doesn't make sense that I have to wait till I'm 21 to get a handgun, but I can get this weapon at 18.
But I'm looking at your plan, and it does not call for that age limit to be raised to 21. After all, what happened?
Well, the plan is really the first step in a more lengthy process, and the proposals that the president has put forward really encompass a lot of things that are supported on a broad bipartisan basis.
But Secretary DeVos, can I just jump in on that? Because you're saying it's a longer process, and yet the president has made clear what he thought. He didn't act like he had to sit there and think about it and have a process. So why is it that it is not in this plan? What happened? What changed?
Everything is on the table, and the commission that is being formed, of which I will lead, is going to be looking at this issue along with a number of other issues. And the point being that we have to get much broader than just talking about guns and a gun issue where camps go into their corners. We have many things, there are many things that have driven this issue in the first place.
You know, nothing is ever good enough for the liberal-leaning progressive patsies in the press. I'm proud of myself. I got through that. Really? The president promised to do this. Now, if Obama had said incrementally, if Obama had done this, it would be wonderful. And they really don't have much to complain about with Trump these days. I mean, he's okay, very animated. He's calling Chuck Todd names. But it's how people feel. And because conservatism, because the moral, the ethic backbone of traditional America has been silenced, has been marginalized, whether it's real or perceived, because nobody wants to be offensive or be offended, Donald Trump continues to resonate. Donald Trump has enough guts to take them on, and they don't like it. I mean, Donald Trump's getting ready to go to California to look at prototypes for the wall. Do you think Governor Moonbeam's happy about that one? Coming up next, students, should they stay in school? Or is there some type of educational benefit to protesting? And whatever happened to just being a kid? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Our time, 6:30. Let's find out what's happening in your world. Good morning, Maggie.
Good. And let's do the not Washington thing. I'll ask short questions and you give short answers, okay? Because I think a lot of people want to understand this. What percentage of teachers at schools would need to be armed in your mind to be effective?
I don't have a percentage. It should be those who are capable and qualified, and only in places where it's appropriate.
Would there be an armed teacher in every classroom?
I don't think that would be appropriate, and I don't think anybody would agree that that would be.
What about in every grade?
I don't think that would be either.
You know, let's take a minute here. Savannah Guthrie doing her best to be the new Matt Lauer on the Today Show. By the way, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is here, 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller with you. And Betsy DeVos on the Today Show this morning. And Betsy's going back and forth on this, and she's not even talking. Savannah Guthrie isn't even talking about the perp, the guy who was mentally ill, the guy who years before his psychologist or psychiatrist said he had delusions of doing this, who openly bragged online that he wanted to be, quote unquote, a professional school shooter. Instead, those teachers. How many guns would be in a classroom? How many people be a great, what are we tipping off the terrorists and such? I caught the end of Patriots Day the other day, that Mark Wahlberg thing on Boston. And it was amazing, the docudrama concerning what happened after the Boston Marathon bombings and the evilness that we face. When we're talking school shooters, when we're talking people that don't have the same regard for life that we do, and yet we have the Today Show going after the Secretary of Education who's trying to keep American kids safe.
Should have this tool if they choose to use the tool. Communities should have the tool. States should have the tool, but nobody should be mandated to do it.
Should the teachers wear their weapons outside so everybody can see it, including little kids, presumably, or should they conceal them so that there's that element of surprise?
Look, this is an issue that is best decided by local communities and by states. It is not going to be appropriate in every location, but it is going to be appropriate in some places.
You know, here's the deal. This turns into, instead of journalism, but advocacy, right? That's what's going on here. And by the way, does anybody really believe that these kids that live in the digital world are really that moved to activism concerning this Wednesday protest? Does anybody really believe it's legit? Brad in Nampa with Hey Millie on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you doing after the time change?
Challenged, but that's about the way I am all the time, sir. And you?
I'm doing all right. I still have yet to set my truck clock, so I'm looking at it going, oh, it's only 5:40 in the morning. Wow. Anyways, so I wanted to talk to you about the arming of teachers. I have a stepfather of mine who is a English teacher, and he's been a drama teacher. He's been teaching for a long time, since I ever came out of diapers. And he, although he's an avid hunter, he loves to go chukar hunting almost every year, deer hunting every year. Took me on my first dove and quail hunt way back when. He is against arming of teachers. He feels that any weapons in the classroom would be an invitation for disaster. And plus, he feels that if the students know that the gun is in that classroom, he feels like it would be a violation of the trust that he is working on between him and his students, and it would interfere in the learning process.
Now, how is having a firearm violating a trust, Brad, number one? And number two, well, who's to say the kids need to know?
I agree with the second bit of yours. Who's the kids need to know? As with Samantha Guthrie, he's like, oh, well, will they wear it on the outside of their hip? No, concealed carry has actually been proven to be more effective than open carry because you aren't showing anyone that you're carrying, so no one knows who to take down first. As for the first bit, where whether or not it's going to sorry, what was your first question? I got distracted.
The first question, back to it, how does this violate the trust if the guy is carrying a gun?
That's right. It would violate the trust for those who are uncomfortable with the firearm itself, those that have been put under the guise that, or under the influence and impression that the firearm itself is the problem. And what kind of surprised me is that my stepfather seems to follow that line of thinking. I love the man very, very dearly. He's pretty much raised me my life, and I value and respect his opinion. However, it doesn't quite seem to square with, at least in my mind, that someone who is an outdoorsman, likes to go sporting, does not realize that it is just a tool, and it's the individual behind the tool that really matters. And I think that is where his line of reasoning is coming from in regards to the effectiveness and the destroying of trust in the classroom. Me personally, I think that everyone that wants to carry should be able to. It should not be mandated, because the firearm in the hands of someone who is unprepared and hesitant to carry is just as dangerous as one that's in someone's hands who is out to do harm.
Well, you've totally confused me. So you're against arming teachers?
No, I am. I am all for allowing teachers who want to carry. They should be able to carry whatever the heck they want. But if they can fit it in a holster, they should be able to carry it. And I think that concealed carry would be the best, although the option should be made available if they wish to open carry. But I don't think we should force anybody to carry, because that into itself can cause mishaps.
All right, Brad, thank you for the call. We so appreciate you. Let's go to Cindy in Caldwell with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Cindy.
Oh, my goodness. Good morning, Kevin. It is so dark out there. Good for you for getting up. Kind of a weird feeling. Anyway,
Wait a minute. You got a weird feeling.
No, I'm looking out the window. It just seems like a whole different time of day, and I actually was thinking about you. It seemed like the middle of the night when I got up. I'm thinking, oh, man, he's at work. Seriously, this is like a really good thing with a couple of the bills. You know, that one's still happening about the guns, the, right to stand your ground, that SB 1313. But Saturday when I picked up the paper, I saw these two smiling faces, and I'm looking at these young kids, a group of Nampa high school students, says arming teachers not calling for gun restrictions is the best approach. And you have these great, healthy-looking young men. They spoke very articulately. They spoke with compassion about the people that were shot and killed at Parkland. But they also were very able to see, obviously coming from a background that they knew some about guns. So it was on the front page of Saturday, March 10th paper what their plans are with the 17-minute, supposed on March 14th. Yes, it is supposedly to honor the students that were shot, but they also saw very clearly how, and I'm just going to have to put it this way easy, the left would like to always go to grabbing the guns, and they wanted their conservative views to be put right out there. I don't know if you can get in touch with them at the Nampa High School, but I said, good for you. They are also, and I'm figuring out how we can support them, come alongside of them, because they're choosing also then to present the other side of you on that march on, the 24th. So I thought the article, which I would have to say was very well written by Patty Bowen. It said she's an education reporter, and it was just refreshing to see not only those group of young people standing there, but standing also their ground for it's not the gun.
Good point, Cindy. Hopefully we'll continue to echo those things. And,
yes.
The idea that it isn't the gun.
It's never the gun, believe me. I can assure you you can hurt, maim other people. And wouldn't it be wonderful, just like I told you that movie you so remind me of for Standing the Way You Stand, but that unarmed, and that's a true story, who got up on that movie's still out, the 1514 to Paris, that train where he was all his training, Brad, who just called, his hunter father-in-law should not be the person to carry that gun. I mean, you need a kind of guy that's trained or woman like special ops, but will know in a moment of time how to react appropriately to a situation, much like a doctor in the ER can go stat. That means right away, just react to that situation by being well trained and knowing exactly what to do. And that's both emotionally and having the wherewithal behind you, but also having the exact training like a special op to go and do the job. Just like the guy got up on the train unarmed to confront a terrorist with a big old weapon and ran toward the problem. And yes, I do believe as a mother there are those which I call the Ritzpah spirit, like our president, that would have ran into that building. And Kevin, I believe you would have stood there and ran towards it too, just like the guy that I told you remind me of on the train who ran towards the problem unarmed.
God bless, Cindy.
God bless you, Kevin. Hang in there with the darkness. Ooh. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. By the way, we do want to remind you, and this is this is the first spring that we've had this. We've had our FM radio station. Before, we were always at a disadvantage because we don't power up. So if you're having trouble, and I know what you're saying, well, Kevin, if I'm having trouble listening to you, I'm not listening to you. But if you're having trouble, go to 107.5 FM. So we're on our flagship station, 580 AM, and our new affiliate, 107.5 FM. Plus, you have the KIDO Talk Radio app. So there are many ways to get Kevin Miller in the morning and all your favorite KIDO Talk Radio shows. Coming up next, Betsy DeVos continues her conversation concerning arming teachers and the liberal reaction. Next with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
Texas has determined, and like Polk County, Florida has determined.
Texas does it. Do you think teachers should be able to carry assault weapons since presumably they may face assault weapons? Do you have an opinion on that?
I don't think assault weapons in schools carried by any school personnel is the appropriate thing.
Now, just how crazy does this get? Okay, we're not even going after the real perps, the criminally insane, or the people that, just had a bad day and have caused this. Well, shouldn't they have assault weapons since they'll be facing? Shouldn't they be able to scare little kids? Man, this is why people hate the media. Jim in Boise, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Jim.
Good morning, sir. I had a comment on this. I am for the arming of teachers, but not for the arming of all teachers, especially since a good portion of them are liberal. I think it would be either, accidental discharge or something would go wrong with that. But the people that, want to and have a desire to, I guarantee there's always going to be someone or two in a school that wants to carry. There's always a few that have that mindset, which I'm for. My comment was, I just remember prior to 9/11, airports, what they were like, they had a little security here and there, metal detectors and such. After 9/11, you had M16s, and people armed. It took a little getting used to, but it didn't, it happened because people wanted the security. The things happening in schools these days and the shootings and the increase, teachers being armed or someone there being armed, it'll take a little getting used to, but I think it needs to happen. We got used to airport security after 9/11. I think we get used to, school armed teachers at a certain point with this as well. This is the same thing with the time change, not time change here, but times change, things change. The police officers are armed. Kids are used to seeing, that. Why would they be so, surprised about knowing a teacher was armed? Especially with the video games and things they play. Most of the characters in those games they play are armed.
Well, and I think the president's onto something that we've been on for quite some time, these whole violent video games.
So the kids play these things.
Right, the way they
have a gun in school. They're used to seeing stuff with guns that
right.
they play.
Yeah.
And they take it as real a lot of the time.
Well, and the way those games devalue life. Everything's a game.
I was talking with Savannah Gunther saying about scaring the children with weapons, that kind of thing. All the kids that I know, myself included, when I played when I was young, I could separate the difference, but even so nowadays, they're used to, weapons and things like that and see what they do. And like you're saying, what President Trump was on to with, the violence in the video games. They see the violence. It's not going to traumatize children to see a real gun. They don't get traumatized when they see police officers who openly carry guns. do they, that I know of?
No, you're right. Jim, thank you for the call. Traffic and weather together.
But again, this is an issue that I think is best decided at the local level by communities and by states.
But a student could legally carry an assault weapon, a student over 18.
Oh, come on, Savannah Guthrie. This is why we always talk back to the TV, or people just check out. People just go to Netflix or Hulu or, I don't know, I guess you can buy classic video games. You know, here's the strange thing. And I don't know if our friend George Norrie would ever do this, or Clyde Lewis, but take a look at the evolution of video games from Pong to Space Invaders to Tecmo Bowl to Mario Brothers to How to Kill People All the Time, Grand Theft Auto, right? The whole devil's advocacy journalism. She's Arthur Fonzarelli. She's jumped the shark.
Not in schools they can't.
Okay, so you still want the schools to be gun-free zones, except for the teachers?
I think schools have to be.
Can you believe they pay her, what, $15 million a year to ask those goofy, ridiculous questions? So, you just still want those teachers to be, everybody to be gun-free except the teachers. No one's forcing educators to be armed. No one wants educators to be armed unless they want to be armed. Unless they want to have that extra responsibility to protect themselves and their kids.
Be protected like every other large gathering place. We protect stadiums, we protect theaters, we protect airports, and we need to make sure that schools are protected in the same way. They have our most valuable asset, our students, our children.
Just very, very quickly, I couldn't help but thinking during this piece that aired right before you came on, you had the president using what we used to call a dirty word to describe one of my colleagues, and I wonder, as the education secretary who's in charge of what our kids learn, what do you think of that kind of language? Would you wash someone's mouth out with soap?
Well, I would probably use different language myself. And
Whoa. What kind of question is that? Again, no wonder the president is the way he is with the media, right? It's just crazy. It is indeed. Speaking of crazy, we'll take a look at the financial markets coming up. Our friend Dave Petzo will be in from the Petzo Center. Petzo Financial going on his 50th year. Well, not his 50th. We're hashtag fake news embellishing a little. Looking forward to talking to Dave, taking your questions about money with Kevin Miller on your home for Fox News on the radio, 580 KIDO. Good morning.